Good afternoon, friends. Continuing in the series of bilateral relations, today I'll be explaining one of the most significant strategic partner of India, that is Israel, a very small country, right? And before you hear my lecture on India-Israel relations, I suggest you hear my lecture on Arab-Israel conflict first, because there I'll be explaining lot of historical background about Israel, right? And for a very long time, as it has been said by one of the defense and security experts in India, Ajay Sahni, he says India-Israel relations for a long time have been held hostage by queer outdated ideologies and domestic vote bank considerations. See, what he means here is that, see, Israel is a state which came into existence in the underbelly of in the midst of at least 30 Islamic countries, right? And it is the only Jewish state in the world, right? And they, right from the time they were born, they have a very hostile relationship with the Muslim world, especially the Arabic world. And the thing is that India during Cold War period was heavily dependent on Middle East, of course is a wrong usage, West Asian countries, what we call as Arab countries, for oil, which is one of the significant resources, right? Sometimes it is said that you can do without water, you cannot do without oil, because if you have oil, you can purchase sufficient amount of water. But if you do not have oil, your entire economy will come to standstill today in the present scenario. And since more than 80% of Indian security is on energy security is ensured by oil, as a result we were badly dependent on Gulf countries, and Gulf countries at that time adopted a very hostile attitude towards countries that were even slightly seen as friendly to Israel. United States was exception for more reasons than one that I'll deal it with later, right? So that is the reason why you will be amazed to know that a country which should have been our natural ally, a country which was so friendly towards India, which was helpful towards India, India boycotted that country. You will be surprised to know that Israel was not allowed to have their embassy in New Delhi, Chanakyapuri, right? Whereas our known enemies, countries that are illegally possessing our land, countries that attacked us like China and Pakistan, they have their embassies in Chanakyapuri, New Delhi, whereas Israel was not allowed to have their embassy. Such was the, I won't say hostility, but perhaps force of circumstances or the logic of the time was so strong that these two countries, despite having so much of commonality and desire to be friendly, remained or appeared inimical towards each other, right? As that is what Mr. Ajay Sahni means, because I am quoting a sentence from one of his article, domestic vote bank consideration. What he means, because Muslims in India constitute a very strong vote bank, most of the parties are afraid of antagonizing them, and this was their calculation, that if they apparently try to be very friendly with Israel, they may lose this particular vote bank. And not only that, Indian policymakers were also hostage to the logic that India may lose their oil supplies from Arabic countries, right? So these were the two important considerations why India stayed away from Israel, despite the fact that Israel had nothing against India. In fact, we had so many things in common with each other despite that. So that, as I said, was the logic of the time. But all this started changing when politics in West Asia started changing, right? And after that, so roughly from 1992, with the end of Cold War, India and Israel started coming together, right? Though Israel was founded in 1948, India recognized and had full diplomatic relationship we established only in 1992, right? Because India, as I said once again, because of vote bank politics and all that, see, primarily India was sympathetic, genuinely sympathetic towards the cause of Palestinians, right? But that was not the only reason why India supported PLO, Yasser Arafat and other things. As I said, considerations were domestic constancy of vote bank politics and India's huge dependence on oil on Gulf countries. These were the two considerations, right? But as I said, it was sympathetic to the cause of Palestinian. In fact, we allowed PLO, which many branded as a terrorist organization, they were having embassy in Delhi, not Israel, a full-fledged nation, right? Causes were many. As I said, India thought that by this strategy, India will be successful in countering Pakistan propaganda in Islamic world, which did not happen actually. Most of these Gulf countries always supported Pakistan on the issue of Kashmir, right? Secondly, as I said, dependence on these countries for oil, and thirdly, especially after the discovery of oil, many Indians slowly and steadily, and I mean initially in terms of stream, later it was flood form, many Indians migrated to Gulf countries for jobs, right? So today the figure is anywhere around between 60 lakhs to 80 lakhs. That was, even at that time, it was a substantial numbers to ignore this reality. This also was the one reason why India stayed away from Israel, right? Lots of jobs. But as I said, secretly many things were happening between India and Israel. Our intelligence agencies, external intelligence agency, that is RAW, was having close cooperation behind the scenes with Israeli external agency, intelligence agency, that is Mossad, which happens to be considered as one of the most sophisticated and most effective and perhaps the most lethal intelligence agency in the world, right? Why I am using for external intelligence? Because for their internal intelligence agency, the way we have IB, Intelligence Bureau, Israel has Shin Bet. The way India has RAW, Israel has Mossad, right? Which I told you about Mossad, right? Hostage to fear that we might antagonize Arab, and Arab countries were hell bent on erasing the existence of Israel. They were so angry with Israel, they had such intense hatred for Israel that they thought that this state has been created in our territory. As a result, we will not rest till we wipe out the existence of Israel. Even today, Israel faces existential threats from 30 countries, right? It's a different thing that today it is a very powerful country. Rather, Israel becomes sometimes threat to these countries, right? So this is what Ajay Saini has to say. Meanwhile, OIC, Organization of Islamic Cooperation, stood as a phalanx behind Pakistan and its exports of terrorism into India and did New Delhi no favors. Arab monies have flowed generously into funding of Islamic extremist and radicalization across South Asia and have done India grievous harm. This is what Ajay Saini feels, and you know Ajay Saini is one of the defense and security experts, right? But as I said, all this started changing from 1992, especially after a war between Iran and Iraq, right? These two countries emerged as regional superpowers, right? Iran and Saudi Arabia. Most of the problem, as we will see when I explain West Asia, are the result of the kind of Cold War that takes place between Iran and Saudi Arabia. So the focus of many Gulf countries shifted from Israel towards this particular Cold War struggle for domination between Saudi Arabia and Iran, right? So today's situation is quite different, and PLO many such organizations have lost their sympathy because of their mindless violence, and we subsequent event, I'll cover this when I cover Arab-Israel disputes. That's the reason why I'm precisely advising you to, before you hear my lecture on India-Israel relations, please hear my lecture on Arab-Israel dispute. Right? There I have discussed as to how PLO came to power, how there was a what is Camp David Accord, how PLO and Israel government came together and went in for Oslo Accord that led to formation of government in Palestine region under the overall control of Israel, the local government by PLO, later how Hamas emerged and all this. In fact, Hamas have lost all their sympathy among a large section of Palestinians there because of their mindless violence. And of course, Israel comes down on any acts of terror with a very, very heavy hand. When you hear my lecture, again I am telling you, please hear my lecture on Arab-Israel disputes. Right? First, that will give you a better picture and you will be in a better position to understand this one today. Today, Arab world itself is badly divided and involved in intra-civilization wars. Not inter-civilization, intra-civilization wars, largely on the fault lines of Sunnis and Shias. And two regional powers are engaged in that, Saudi Arabia as well as Iran. And as I said, Palestine causes has did through decades of terrorism, right? Then please remember, Israel is surrounded by not 1 or 2, 30 hostile Muslim countries which believe in wiping out the existence of Israel from the map of world. So Israel cannot afford to be lax even for a day. Many a times people come and ask me, sir, why Israel reacts in such a nasty fashion for throwing this straight away indulgent firing and all that. Let me tell you, as Ajay Sahni says, even if Israel lowers its guards for a day, it will be wiped out. Right? For them, militarism and machoism are not an ideological choice, they are survival imperatives. If Israel does not behave that way, it will be wiped out. Right? So this is about the compulsions of Israel. Now, what exactly are the cooperations between India and Israel? Today, both countries are victims of terrorism, right? And incidentally, Israel has one of the most sophisticated and finest intelligence agency in the world, which is known for its counter-terror operations, that is Mossad. And this is one area, this can be linchpin of India-Israel cooperation. But let us see what are the important areas of cooperation. See, despite its small size, it has emerged as third largest source of defense and security equipment for India. Right? Again, as I said, please listen to my lecture on Arab-Israel dispute. Why? Then you will understand why a country of almost 1.25 billion is dependent on a country of simply 80 or 90 lakhs people, like less than 1 million, sorry, less than 8 millions. Then you will come to know it when you hear that lecture. Then Israel has today supplying most of the defense hardware to India, including a range of missile systems, armed drones, laser guided missiles, airborne warning systems, controls, AWACS, border surveillance equipments, night vision cameras, night vision binoculars. All this is a counter terror equipments today is being supplied to India by Israel. Right? Out of this, I can tell you one laser guided missiles. You know, when Pakistan attacked India in Kargil in 1999, right? They were placed in a better position, and it took a lot of time for India to get those valleys vacated by Pakistani army right? And what came to our rescue? It is laser guided bombs which Israel supplied to India. It is through that we could comprehensively drive out Pakistani soldiers in Kargil in 1999. Then Israel is the third largest defense hardware suppliers, right? Every year. India is Israel's largest defense market, accounting for 50% of its military exports, right? Israel has come to India's defense during wars like 62, 65 and 1999. Then is Harpy missiles, right, which can silence enemy radars. This is being used by Indian Air Force today, right? Then there are joint naval exercises, joint military exercises with Israel, and their soldiers are thoroughly trained. In fact, it is they who are training Indian soldiers. Otherwise, when it comes to Sri Lanka, Nepal, Afghanistan, it is their soldiers are getting training in various Indian institutes, right, defense institutes. But when it comes to counter terror, dealing with hijacking, dealing with what should I say, bomb disposal squads, dog squads, it is Indian soldiers or Indian intelligence personnel who are getting trained by Mossad or Israeli intelligence network, right? So these are all the areas: tackling cross-border terrors, deserts, mountains, right? Counter hijacking, hostage crisis situations. All these are situations to which modern nation states are prone to on account of global terrorism. India is getting help. Indian personnels are getting trained by Israel. Then supplying India with anti-missile systems, high-tech radars, sky drones, night vision equipment, all these are anti-submarine helicopters, maritime patrols, right, surveillance equipments, all these things are being supplied to India by Israel. Then all these, equipments like missile firing heroin, TP drones, all these are anti-ballistic missile systems, right? And in 2017, Cabinet Committee on Security has cleared 70,000 crore deal for buying 40 medium-range surface-to-air missiles for Indian Army and Strike Corps. All these things are in pipeline with Israel, and it is Israel who is helping out India in all these equipments. And please remember, Israel was one of the few countries that openly supported India when India went in for nuclear testing in 1998. Right. Now, counter-terror, internal securities are the linchpins of Indo-Israel cooperation, because both countries face terrorism based on religious fundamentalism across their borders. So they are both victims of cross-border terrors. So as a result, since it is here that expertise of Israel can come to the rescue of India, right? Intelligence gathering, fighting money laundering and other organized crimes, right? It has an experience in training, equipping and operating elite undercover units deployed in terrorist areas to gather intelligence, right? Security forces are facing similar situations in Kashmir and Northeast, right? Commando units, destroying armed terrorists, bomb making capabilities, use of dogs, robotics to detect hidden roadside mines, border surveillance, border security scan can be useful for India. In fact, you will be surprised to know that 90% of the Indo-Pak border today we have sealed with the help of Israeli technology, and even surveillance there is being done by Israeli equipment, right? Fight against cross-border terrorism, anti-insurgency strikes, as well as counter hijacking techniques, right? And our trade is also growing with Israel, and there are areas where Israel can teach us many things like nanotechnology, space technology, public health, proper usage of water. You will be surprised to know that Israel gets less rainfall than Badmer districts of Rajasthan or Anandpur districts of Andhra. Yet its production is much more, 3 or 4 times more than India, right? You will be surprised to know that 80% of the sewage water is recycled and used again. 90% of the other non-sewage water for say domestic use and other things, that also is recycled and reused. So we can get this. India today is also turning out to be a water deficient country despite many rivers and all that. So as a result, this particular Israeli technology could be helpful to us. In fact, the modern technology, what we call as drip irrigation system, that leads to optimum utilization of water, is an Israeli technology. It is not any American or Russian technology. In fact, Kalashnikov AK-47 assault rifles is also Israeli technology. It sounds strange that most of those terrorist organizations are using AK-47 in order to annihilate Israel. I mean, a country responsible for invention of AK-47, right? Then how to use agriculture technology and all these things India can learn from Israel. Whether it is agriculture, fisheries, horticulture, Israel is way ahead of not only India but any other country in the world, right? Then industrial R&D, innovations, right? Again, you hear to my lecture about contribution of Jews and then their contribution in innovations and all that. You will know it once you hear that lecture. Today Israel boasts of 4,500 startups, right? So these are the areas where India and Israel are cooperating with each other. And you'll be surprised, in Israel there is something called compulsory military training for every Israeli boy and a girl, right? You should also know that Israel is the only democratic country in that entire region of 40 countries, right? But despite being democratic, there is a compulsory military training in Israel. A girl or boy from the age of 18 to 24 will know how to go in for anti-nuclear masks. They know how to operate a patent tank. They know how to operate AK-47 assault rifles. They know, everybody knows it. Because as I said, Israel is constantly under attack. Their peace is interval between 2 wars. So it equips its citizens. Well, citizens are free to choose any profession, but military training is compulsory. There no girl can say, well, I want to be an actress, I want to be model, why should I undergo all this hard training? The training is essential. You can be model, you can be actress, you can be professor, anything. But military training is compulsory for everyone. Unlike in India, where it is only compulsory for people involved with internal security or defense of the country. For people like me and you, it is not compulsion. But in Israel, that is compulsory. Although it is a democratic country, people can choose the profession of their choice, right? And as a result, after hard military training, most of these Israeli boys and girls would like to unwind themselves. And that is and India is a very inexpensive country for tourists. It's not at all costly. It's highly inexpensive. Maybe because of currency exchange and all that. So many of the Israelis, they are coming to places like Goa, Manali, Kasol, Kulu in Himachal Pradesh, Dharamshala. In fact, Kasol has become a mini Israel. If you go to Himachal Pradesh, Kasol, many Israelis have come and settled there, right? They don't want to go back now. You can find their cake shops and all that if you happen to go to Kasol in Himachal Pradesh. So so they come, and almost 50,000 Indians today are visiting Israel, because that Dead Sea seems to be having lot of curative capacities. If you go and simply lie down there, the density of water is so thick there that you will not sink. In fact, you will float, and while floating you can attract many good chemicals which are conducive for your health and all that. There are many, so we are, and cities like Tel Aviv and other things are really worth visiting cities. So as a result, many Indians, there are cultural exchange programs, business men from both the countries are trying to invest in each other countries. So there is all round tourism, all round cooperations. And then please remember, if you again listen to my lecture on Arab-Israel dispute, India is the one and perhaps the only countries where historically Jews were not ill-treated. Like any other minorities, all those people who teach us secularism should know that India was the only country where minorities, whether Jews, Parsis, Syrian Christians, right, and Buddhist, Tibetans, right, especially the first three communities have been staying in India since thousands of years, when there was no Indian constitution, no secularism, right, and they remain unmolested. They were protected. Nobody persecuted them for their religious beliefs. And let me tell you, this was possible only in India. A fact confirmed by the official history of Jews. If you get time, please read that. If not, hear my lecture on Arab-Israel dispute, right? So that goodwill India always had in the eyes of Jewish people, right? And it is the only country where Jews lived, right? Persecution, greatness of Jews is that. But greatness of Jews, similarly we gave shelter to many other communities, but they don't express gratefulness. They are thoroughly ungrateful people if they do not acknowledge that. Greatness of Jews is that they acknowledge this. They are grateful. That is what they have acknowledged, this fact in their official history, right? Then these points are not very important, because when they were driven out from their own country, they settled in many parts of India, and of course 90% of the Jews went back to Israel after 1948, when State of Israel came into existence, and it invited all the Jews all over the world can go and settle and get citizenship immediately whenever they want to go to Israel. So most of the Jews from India after 1948 left and settled in Israel. Of course, some are left. And greatness of India is that not a single synagogue, what is synagogue? Place of worship of Jews has been touched, leave alone demolishing it and trying to build temples over that. None of these things. Not a single synagogue, whether they are in Malabar region or Pune or Mumbai, are touched. Rather, it is protected and we honor it, right? So that is, and all these facts are being acknowledged by Jews, right? And a study has been conducted which India has found to be the most pro-Israeli nation in the world, right? Plus there are certain fundamental commonalities between India and Israel, what we call as convergences of interest between India and Israel. Like both are ancient civilization held in high esteem for their contribution to humanism, philosophy and human progress. You know the contribution of India, Ayurveda, yoga, meditation. Today world is increasingly realizing about these contributions to alternate medicine of India. Israel contribution, again hear my lecture, there you will come to know what are the contribution of Jewish race for human progress and for humanity. These are the two races, both Hindus and Jews, who have made maximum contribution for human welfare and for human progress as well, right? Now let me come to, despite different religious and cultures, both are ancient civilizations and newborn nations, right? It would be absolutely, a person who says India discovered itself in 1947, I think requires treatment, medical treatment. India has always been an ancient civilization, right? India, please understand, is much more than a nation state, right? Its civilizational cultural identity is the fulcrum core of India, right? Same is the case with Jews, right? As a result, both are ancient civilizations, but modern countries. Both are modern countries, right? They were formed roughly during the same time, that is 1947 India, 1948 Israel. Both countries have lived, survived and prospered in hostile neighborhoods, right? You just contrast the economic development of Pakistan with India. Both the countries have survived and grown in hostile atmosphere. India hemmed between China and Pakistan, Israel surrounded by 30 hostile countries. Yet both the countries have not only survived but grown, and their global influence have expanded with the passage of time, right? And both the countries, despite their numerous problems, they have remained committed to democratic values. This again is a very, very significant point, right? Other than Israel, show me one democratic country in that circumference of 50 countries. You will not find a single democratic country, only Israel. Similarly, in this region also, with some exceptional countries here and there, by and large, India remained committed to democracy despite all kinds of fault lines which many of the writers try to project. And they wrote off India because of these fault lines long back. Everybody thought that after China war, India will get broken into 20 pieces. Rather, reverse happened. Feeling of nationalism grew much more, and India as a nation state became much more strong. Please remember, nation is more a psychological concept, unlike state or a country, which are geographical constructs, right? Both countries have lived and survived, and Jews have always lived peacefully without any sort of discrimination in India, a fact which has been deeply appreciated by Israel, right? See, we have given shelter to Parsis, we have given shelter to Jews, we have given shelter to Syrian Christians, we have given shelter to Tibetan Buddhists. Tell me, have they created any problems for India? Any time? Have they indulged in riots? Have they attacked police stations? Have they created law and order problems? Not only law and order problems, have they ever created problems for internal security of the country? Never. This is the fact which India also should acknowledge. In fact, if you ask me who are minorities, these are the real minorities in the true sense of the term. They never had any problem in India, right? And this is the fact which most of these people belonging to these communities acknowledge, and it is high time that anti-India forces also should acknowledge this fact. Then, in spite of support to PLO, India welcomed Camp David Accord. What is Camp David Accord? Again, look into my lecture, right? And stated that Israel had right to exist, right? Though we were supporting Arab countries, but we never budged from our stand that, well, Israel has right to exist, whereas Arab countries were saying we will wipe out their existence, right? And right, both are victims of terrorism sponsored by neighbors. So far so good. But this does not mean that there are no differences between India and Israel. Despite all these commonalities, despite so many points of convergences, let me tell you, there are points of this, and there will always be. Show me one relationship which is free of discord. There will not be. In fact, there cannot be even within the house, within a small unit like family, or further small unit like nucleus family. There will always be differences between any two relationships, right? Like wife and husband, father, son, mother, daughter, there will always be. So forget about such a large unit like nation states, right? After all, lovers also quarrel, right? That doesn't deviate it from the fact that they are lovers because of some quarrels, right? So India similarly India-Israel relationship, that way no bilateral relationship is free from discords and divergences. So India-Israel relationship also has fair share of discord, and that discord is Palestinian issue. India openly, even now, even the present government supports that there should be independent state of Palestine as mandated by UN resolution. Please remember, UN in 48 created not one but two states, a state of Israel as well as state of Palestine, and that has been denied to Palestine by Israel. So India is very clear that Palestinians have right to exist. Of course, Israel might have their own reasons and other things, but Indian stand is very clear. This many a times is not to the liking of Israel. Secondly, because please understand, India has to strike a balance between Arab countries and Israel. For the simple reason, 17 crore Muslims are there in India, a powerful constituency in a democratic system which no political class will ignore. Second, India's close relations with Gulf countries, India's dependence on West Asia for oil, then almost now it could be 8 million Indians working in Gulf countries. These are the compulsions of India, these are the imperatives of India, which Israel must understand. And similarly, India also should understand the compulsions of Israel, that it is facing existential threat, it is adopting the policies which it feels it should adopt, and Israel's growing closeness with China. Israel's trade with with China is almost double vis-a-vis their trade with India. So if we expect Israel to accommodate our concerns, India should also accommodate concerns of Israel. And secondly, it is Iran. We know we cannot forego Iran. We have traditionally good relations with Iran. Added to this, Chabahar port is significantly important to India for finding access to Central Asia as well as developing trade right up to Russia. Right? This is one imperative which we cannot overlook, howsoever good our relationship with Israel could be. Right? And different in perception. Right? Incidentally, it is Iran. I'll cover this more when I cover West Asia. Israel supports Hezbollah terrorist group which is based in Lebanon, which is being supported by Iran, and much to the discomfort of Israel. The terrorist activity which is being carried out inside Israel by Hamas in turn are supported by Hezbollah, and Hezbollah based in Lebanon, who in turn are supported by Iran. So it's obvious that Israel will have a very hostile relation with Iran. But Iran happens to be a very close friend of India. This is one area where there is discord between India and Israel. Then differing perception of terrorism. India considers Pakistan to be the nerve center of terrorism, whereas Israel considers Iran to be the hub of terror. Right? And India's relationship with China, as I said, China is an important factor. A cause of growing Chinese influence is the cause of differences between India and Israel. Then Israel bilateral trade with China is 11 billion, more than double, point which I already told you. Now question arises, if fact is that we have close cooperation with Israel, it is one of the friendly countries to India, right? A reliable friend. India can always depend on Israel during crisis, right? So it will always turn out to be a reliable friend, partner for India in future because of convergences of core points. Core points we are one. right? And then again, this is what Ajay Sahni has to say. What a nation of 1.3 billion, India can learn from a nation of 8.2, that is 82 lakhs Israelis. What 1.3 billion people can learn is commitment to national goals, dedication of purpose, a high sense of duty, their determination to seek peace through strength, and veneration for intellect. All these points will be clear to you if you hear my lecture on India, on Arab-Israel dispute. See, you can pursue peace through only from the position of strength. If you do not have strength, nobody is going to take your words seriously, right? Bhakti bhi Shakti mein hi hoti hai, right? If you do not have Shakti, nobody will care for your Bhakti, right? So similarly, this is one thing, central message is that if you want to pursue peace, pursue is from the position of strength, not from the position of weakness. This is what we should learn. And ultimately, I would like to conclude that India and Israel today are very friendly and close countries, and their cooperation, I mean, besides in agriculture, in water conservation, in startups, in nanotechnology, besides all this, the linchpin of cooperation between India and Israel is counter-terror equipment, which I have already explained, and defense cooperation, especially defense hardware. With this, I conclude. The possible questions could be about, say, points of discord between India and Israel, one question, and primarily question will be India, Israel, defense and security cooperation. All the points which I have dictated, you can simply reproduce them and just substantiate it with whatever is the latest. These are the two possible questions that I can foresee, that is India-Israel cooperation in areas like defense, internal security and security equipment, and secondly, points of discord, points of divergences between India and Israel, like Iran, Palestinian issue, growing influence of China, right? With this I conclude. Hope I have made everything clear to you between India and Israel. There is not much. With this I conclude. Thanks.